System activate.
This is NetHeads with Will Wilkins. It's a tech podcast. But we are a ton cooler than your typical geek.
You guys rock.
And now, here's Will.
That's right. It's another edition of NetHeads, but not your typical edition of NetHeads, because this is a NetHeads for charity. And I'm not alone. As a matter of fact, I'm the least person in control right now of the program, because sitting with me is somebody you've heard on NetHeads before, and whose presence I have always enjoyed and communication I've appreciated across the pond and across the internets. Welcome to NetHeads, and thank you for having me, Doctor Squee.
Thank you very much for once again bringing NetHeads. You were here for the first Squeefest a couple of years ago, so it's great to have you back. And I was just actually thinking, I was looking at you there, because you've lost some weight since the last one we did, I believe.
I think that's a common issue.
I think since we first knew each other, I think we've lost an extra podcaster between our weight losses.
Fair enough. I think... At least, the one that's just a few stones, between us. One of those lightweights that you've seen walking around where you're like, eat a sandwich, please. Those kind of people. But anyway, thank you for having me. First of all, let's make sure everyone is clear on this. Let's make sure, and just a broadcasting essential one anyway. Let's remind everyone the charity that we're talking for, and if they're hearing this after the fact, where they can go to still continue support.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have been so thankful to the outpouring, the donations which we've had. The charity which we're raising money for is NHS Charities Together. Basically, the reason why it's NHS Charities Together is the NHS obviously does so many different things here in the UK, and they've got loads of different charities representing the different areas. This is kind of one charity which brings everything together, the one ring to bind them all, if you will, to bring it back to geekdom. And its main focus at the moment, as you might imagine, is COVID response and supporting the staff and the volunteers of the NHS who are under increasing pressure. I had on earlier my friend Michelle, who is an NHS nurse, and she's being asked to work more weekends, more hours into the night for less overtime than they would usually get. And that just shows you some of the pressure they're under. And as well as doing all this wonderful work, they're also working towards cures as well at the NHS. So it's not something which just affects the UK. Not that I think that any of your dear listeners would ever be so selfishly as to geo-lock their compassion. I know your listeners are so discerning, they care about people around the world. But even if you're selfish about it, we find a cure for everyone. So it's worth putting some skin in the game just for that. We're currently at £300, and I set the aim at £200. I want to set it low and surpass it. We've already got half again over what we wanted, but I think we can do better.
Definitely.
Keep going, guys.
So please.
/Squeefest.
There we go. And please, if you can, anywhere you can help. I'm actually realized that I have lifted my social media mask embargo for this. I've been, one of the things I've been doing, because as some of the people watching live may not know, or you can definitely tell from my accent, I'm here in the United States of America. And one of the things I started to do in one of the very little ways I felt I could contribute was to wear a mask on social media, so that way I could normalize the appearance, because it's such a hot topic here. But I'm actually at the point now where I'm willing to lift that embargo anyway, because it's, I don't know, I don't want to say I'm completely throwing in the towel, but I mean, earlier tonight, I went out to get food for my family. Everyone said, hey, it's Saturday night, let's have some Mexican, and my daughter said, let's go to the one in the next town over, because it's supposed to be really, it's better than the same named restaurant we've got here in our town. And I said, sure, no problem. I've got my mask, my hand sanitizer, the whole lot. And I walk in. Thankfully, everyone was wearing a mask, but it's got they have one of those people queues like you see in amusement parks, where it's at least like one lane that wraps around to go parallel with one another. And when I walked in, everyone's just standing next to each other. And I just started shaking my head going, it's It's never going to end. So hopefully, yeah, we need a cure and we need it now. So anything we can do to contribute, and it's quite admirable that you're doing this. And some people may say, oh, 300 pounds, but that's 300 pounds more than were donated before. And any size effort, I think, is appreciated in this modern day and age, especially in such a hot topic climate. No matter where you're at, there always is some issue. I know, like here in the States, with the regrettable passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg yesterday, the Democratic Party in the 24 hours after her passing has raised over $80 million. So obviously people are interested in giving, no matter what the financial hardships we've got going on. But you know what? Let's talk about slightly more uplifting topics.
Throw something on that just very quickly, because something which I've tried to say on a regular basis during this stream is that I do really appreciate there are some people in very financial difficult straits. People have lost their business, people have lost their jobs, people who are really hurting for money. So please, the other part of it is I do want this to be something which people can enjoy. And if people are in a financial situation where they cannot afford any money, please enjoy this. Like, this is for you as much as for anyone else. Just if you can afford it, please do donate. So I just want to reiterate that point as much as I can throughout the 24 hours.
Oh yeah, definitely. And that's the thing too. We've all got to do what we got to do. And if nothing else, hopefully, even if it is without a contribution, we are providing some form of entertainment. That's the goal. I've been recently going through, I don't know, kind of a self-exploration, questioning the motives. Why is it I do what I do? I here in the States, another hot topic is TikTok, and I think they just got a kind of a presidential reprieve here, and it's not going to get banned as of tomorrow from the app stores. But it's like, why am I even doing videos there? What is my goal? What is my purpose? And I got caught up in that game that I think a lot of people do when you have some type of online presence. You start to obsess about the numbers. And when you're doing that, that's the wrong reason. Yes, I am quite an attention whore, but the reason why I do this is because I hope I provide something positive and uplifting to people. So that's why I'm here now, to hopefully add a positive contribution to this, no matter what. So how are you, sir? It's like you said, it's been a while. I think the last time we spoke, I don't even know if it was a post-Who conversation or it was the trivia. It was the trivia contest contribution, I think.
Okay, it's been very weird. Like, when I think back to when we did the last Squeefest, like that's kind of my benchmark at the moment. Is kind of like I've been thinking about loads of things. There was a show which we launched at the last Squeefest Retrek, which is now spun off into its own thing. It was just something fun to do on the day. It's a Star Trek podcast, as you might guess by the name. And they've now done that as a going concern. The guys who I did the initial one with, it was with my now fiance Nicola and James and Elliot, and they've spun it off into their own thing. They've made it their own. It's wonderful.
And have they completely cut you out?
Well, no, I cut myself out, actually. To begin with, I was kind of like, oh, brilliant, we'll do this. And I realized, you cannot do every podcast going. You actually have to have some time to have experiences to talk about.
We can't all be Kevin Smith.
Yeah, exactly. But it's wonderful. Like, every now and again, I want to talk about Star Trek, and I can scratch that itch by going on the show I help create. So I've given myself an outlet for that, which is kind of nice.
Is it a little awkward, though, when you have to ask your fiance if you can be on her podcast?
No, she is not a regular member.
Okay.
We between us agreed we just couldn't weekly find the time to do it.
Fair enough.
However, we love going on there and guesting like we did tonight, and that was absolutely glorious. So I kind of guess I've been seeing things through that prism tonight. Like, what's different between 2 years ago and now? So me and Nicola, we just started dating. We're engaged now.
Yes, congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. And we got engaged actually during lockdown, which is kind of one of the weird things. It's one of those things where I thought about should I propose to her? Because it's really weird. It's in lockdown. And I couldn't go out and buy a ring at the time. And then I thought, well, if you're worried about that, you're really like you were saying, it's about looking at the wrong thing. It's looking at the ratings, overlooking over why you're doing it and what you're hoping to achieve. I'm hoping to achieve like a life together with my fiance. Like, what does it matter? Like, if I can't buy the ring right now, I can have this moment with her during a really difficult time. That was wonderful. So I guess it's like about yeah. So when I did the last Squeefest, I'm really not in the grand scheme of things moved into this place that long. I'd just kind of gone past the stage where I was considering myself as divorced from my ex-wife, if that makes sense. I'd gone past that to being single again in my own right, and then starting to see Nicola. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question. I think I've lost track of reality at this stage. I think I'm like something like 15 hours in at this stage. So if that answered your question at all, meh.
Yeah, it's okay. As long as we came close. But you know what? I actually applaud you for getting engaged during this. Because first of all, it's a testament, obviously, to the relationship. Because how does one say this? Things can get really tense when you're always around one another. So if that was something that you're like, you know, this is what I want to do, that's an excellent comment about where you are in life, especially when you can't leave. The other thing too, though, is think of it this way: at least you're also helping attach a very positive memory to a very dire time. So one, you know, they say that we only remember the good times and the bad times, and this way you will remember the good time way more, hopefully, than the bad time.
I think there's definitely something in there that I think people like imagine that, oh my God, like you spent all this time in lockdown, you must be getting on so great to have got engaged. It's like, one of the things to me is that you can have these arguments which are inevitable during the situation. And people try, I think, gloss over it. It's like that social media thing of only posting good things. But the thing which really taught me was I can argue like cats and dogs with my fiance, but I still want to spend then the rest of my life with her. I still want to spend the rest of the day with her. I still find that even though we kind of almost live out of each other's pockets at times, we're working together at home a lot of the time now. And I still want to spend my off time with her. And like that's the real test. It's not like if you don't argue, it's if you argue and you still want to be together and you still want to be around each other after having those arguments. And like, of course you have those wonderful times as well. You wouldn't just do it for the arguments, but the arguments are part of the journey. That's all part of it. So it's all gravy.
Definitely. And, you know, not to mention there's a certain point where in a relationship you realize every fight doesn't mean the end of the relationship. It just means two people are coming at something from a different perspective. And 5 minutes later, it can be all hugs and kisses again. And it's fine because you realize that there are important things and unimportant things. And a lot of arguments really kind of stem from unimportant things in the grand scheme of things anyway. But you know what? I'm not here to act as your therapist or to analyze you. But you did bring up something very interesting when you mentioned, you know, how there's kind of the social media aspect of just posting about the good stuff. Because we are on different continents, I have to ask, via Netflix or any other avenue in the UK and abroad, is there a venue for you to have seen a recently released, what I'm going to call a docudrama in a weird way, The Social Dilemma?
I have not heard of this one.
Okay, it's really interesting. It just dropped on Netflix a little while ago. And I'll tell you the reason why I think it's interesting, not only because it's reframed my thinking about a lot of things, which, you know, could just mean I'm easily influenced, but it's a documentary where they made an interesting decision. They interviewed, it's a documentary built around speaking to a lot of people that were involved in the early days of social media and the development of the algorithms that are built to help make those businesses viable. And they did an interesting choice, though. Even though they've got a documentary and they've got subjects to speak to, they also create a fictional narrative to help provide a better visual, if you will, to what they're trying to describe on what these social media algorithms do. So in other words, it's one thing to sit there and say, well, you know, the algorithm will notice your habits and it'll try and give you content that's relevant to you. But then if you stop engaging, there's another element of the algorithm that says, okay, well, we've now got somebody who isn't engaged anymore. So what can we do to re-engage them? Oh, well, let's take a look instead over at these friends that might pique his interest or these subjects and start funneling them in there. I think that in the narrative, they refer to it as a like not a Lazarus, but not a resuscitation either. Doesn't matter. Bringing something back to life is the point. But in doing that, so they've got these actors playing out the part. So that way, huh?
Reanimation?
Yeah, there you go. Or something. It doesn't matter. It's a detail that I'm now going to get caught up on for 10 minutes, and it's just going to totally derail us. So I'll avoid it. And in initiating that protocol, they demonstrate how the algorithm doesn't care what kind of content or the moral right or wrongness of that content. It just knows that this particular content might get somebody who hasn't been engaged more engaged and keep them on the platform, type of thing. And when they have these actors acting these parts out, it sort of distracts from the element. But them and their acting really isn't the point that I wanted to get to. The point was that it really kind of tells you in this the great lengths and the moral ambiguity that are out there to keep us engaged with social media. Now, personally, I don't use Facebook or Instagram as my news sources. And I don't know if this change has rolled out for you abroad from my perspective. I'm abroad from your perspective. But I noticed that one of my regular go-tos is Google News, right? That's how I read my news every morning now. I don't, get the paper. I don't watch the telly. I get it from Google News. And now when I look on my smartphone, right, in the Google Chrome browser, instead of the typical view I got, they made an interesting change. And I want to know if this is also available when you look at it, because now instead of top stories and local news, maybe something I'm following, which I don't, now instead the first item is for you on there. So this is the news they feel I want to see. And here is the scary part about that article and the way that I look at this now, because one of the people made mentions that we as humans are still also software, because a lot of what we do is based on behavior. So have you given any thought in your world to how the potential for people with, let's say, amoral desires may be able to utilize through advertising exploitation of this algorithm, these business models, to actually reprogram you by developing new habits for you? And that also is kind of in this documentary. So what's your daily engagement with social media? Like, how do you mainly use it?
I mean, I guess it is still something, like I do look at Facebook on my timeline, and I find myself scrolling. It's not how it used to be, though. It's interesting because I think in this effort to try and get you to engage more by bespoking your experience, and it's kind of interesting that this was on Netflix, as you mentioned, because Netflix is really notorious for that as well. There is no browser for Netflix to view everything. They give you your bespoke look at Netflix. This is the programs you watch, so these are the programs you're going to get advertised. And Nicola would actually go onto my Netflix sometimes because she wouldn't get recommended some shows which she'd see on mine, so she'd go on there to see them because she knew it was doing this. And and it's the same with Facebook. I used to love going on there and just seeing everyone on there, all my friends. I could just see what the most recent things which are posted, and then I could see through what's happening. Now I get like this bespoke timeline of people I've engaged with recently, or people they think I should be engaging with right now. I find myself looking at it for a lot less time because I just am seeing the same stuff, and it makes it less interesting to me. I love the random nature of Facebook, and Twitter's still a little bit better at it, but I think that's probably going to go towards that as well. They keep on tinkering with these things. This is the thing. Like, when you enjoy it, they love playing with it to make it different. Like, the amount of facelifts Facebook goes through, and it's just like, all it means is I've got to find where that button is now, really. Mm-hmm. And they've added few buttons which I didn't want. Like I didn't want a feed just for videos, for instance. I wanted my stuff, which everyone's posting, just in random order. The chaos is the lovely thing about it. The fact that you might not know which friend has been online recently that's posted something interesting. So I think the more they try to get me, the less they get me. The more I find an advert. Like the most ridiculous thing they do is if you look up on Amazon a pair of trainers, then it will try and sell you the same pair of trainers you've just bought. Even if you bought it, even if you purchased, it will then show you adverts for those trainers. And it's like, I just bought them. That's the last thing I want to buy right now because I've just purchased some trainers.
You're still cooking for them, sir.
I don't. It really just drives me nuts, that kind of thing. It's like, don't try and sell me what I've already got. And I think that's what they do with all these things. Like they think it's bespoke, but it's just selling me what I've already got.
Yeah, my personal experience now, the only time I engage with Facebook is either when it's a serious life event that I have to acknowledge. Well, I shouldn't say have to. Poor choice of words, but that I should acknowledge. For example, yesterday was my 26th wedding anniversary, so I know that I'm going to go on and I'm going to post something to, acknowledge how much I love my wife and appreciate we've been together for 26 years. Even though in this year I probably did the least satisfying effort because she did such a wonderful post. I just reshared it because I couldn't say anything better than that. I couldn't create an image montage she did better than that. So it's that. So the close familial items, and then just for business purposes. Oh, new episode of NetHeads has dropped. Oh, a new thing of Kevin Smith's is happening. This, that. Almost the same thing for Instagram. I don't really integrate heavily with that as well, which is interesting since they're both Facebook products. I think my main social media feed still is Twitter. And that's only because I can still control seeing the latest. Even though, of course, I'm just going to see what I follow. So it is still a very tailored conceptual feed. But still, I can at least control the zeitgeist of it. I can see what's now and recent. And I don't know, do you have much experience with TikTok yet?
TikTok's not one I engage with. Sometimes it's almost like I want everyone else to decide if it's something I'm going to need. So I will wait for other people. Like I'm a late adopter on purpose, almost. I want people to kind of beta test it because there's so many of these platforms which just come and go now. I want to just see which ones are going to last first before I get engaged with them, before I spend time setting up profiles and stuff. Because I made the mistake with Google Plus. I made the mistake with oh God, I'm trying to think of another one, but just there's so many of these things which have come and gone, and I've wasted time. I feel like engaging with them. I want to know they're going to last the course, and that there's something which I'm not getting elsewhere. TikTok, I just didn't. For me, see the point. I'm not saying it's pointless because there's so many people who are TikTok stars, for instance. They're people who make a living off this somehow. But it just, I don't see anything it's going to give me that I'm not getting elsewhere.
It's the most dangerous platform if you are concerned about losing time because the maximum video length is 60 seconds, which doesn't sound like a major commitment. But if you've watched 10 TikToks in a row, you've lost 10 minutes of your time. If you've watched 60, there's an hour. But it's very interesting from a voyeuristic perspective, from a comedy perspective, and their algorithm is really good because based on what you watch and you like or say you're not interested in, you do build a very customized feed that will, at least 75% of the time, keep you entertained. So going back to the social media, social dilemma documentary, after I watched it, I'm like, you know what? Because everyone's always talking about TikTok's algorithm. I said, you know what? I'm not going to look at it for a whole day. Okay, I haven't looked at it since I watched this. I'm not going to look at it again until the following day. And I'm going to see what happens. And I kid you not, even though I don't have on my iOS badges turned on for it knowingly, somehow, you always miss something and some badges come through, the number indicator on the app. And I literally watched it that day do something it's never done before. Suddenly I've got 2 notices. Now I've got 5 notices. Now I've got 15 notices. So there's something going on there. And it's purposely pinging me, trying to get my attention, which after seeing that documentary scared the heck out of me. But it is interesting to think about. If you think about these algorithms that don't care about what they're feeding us, or if you think about these algorithms from a perspective of somebody playing what I refer to as the long con, right? Or let's put a positive term to it. They're playing a long game. There is a way, and in the US we've seen this from the 2016 election and the interference and some of the counter protests that had been set up, and the way that false narratives are used, or supposed news stories are used to help elicit a reaction. If somebody's playing a long game, I almost feel like social media in a way now could be the way that they reprogram the thinking of the masses to align more with what they want. And interestingly enough, I think Doctor Who almost made a commentary about this in series 7, I think it was, with the intelligence forming, the company that was literally bringing people in through the Wi-Fi. You remember that? And they talk about how we're giving away so much of our information freely. It really started to scare the living heck out of me. And mind you, we're doing this and sharing this through social media. So I'm surprised the social media police haven't started knocking on the door. But it's one of those things that I think we really need to be careful about our relationship with technology, because I even notice now, and I noticed it when I would always go on the commuter train, just how disengaged we are from one another in society because of the convenience of the technology that was put in our hands. And I don't think there were ever any bad intentions in the creation of that. It's just the implementation.
Well, it's this step-by-step thing. So it starts with just being like Facebook. Like, this is the social media. This is a place where you can just catch up with friends and meet new friends. And isn't that wonderful? Then they start trying to make it more addictive. So they start feeding you stuff that's going to get you looking back again, and trying to learn algorithms for what you like and what they can push away, and maybe over time what they can sell you, because they start doing adverts and stuff. It's then we're at a new worrying place, I think, whereby it's a bit insidious, the things which I've mentioned there already. But what happens when I'm sorry, but I don't want to get too political, but Donald Trump wants, you can tell by certain things he said, certain things he's gone towards, to control how social media is used, what they can and can't say. That's when all these tools which they've created, if he gets his hands on them, becomes state-run media. They've set up this wonderful contraption that if the wrong pair of hands got in charge of it, it is ready to be so much more actively abusive than passively manipulative.
And that's exactly my point. It's true, in the wrong hands. And I even saw someone saying something today, and again, I haven't validated the information, so I'm in no way, shape, or form endorsing it or believing it, but they brought up the point that part of the reason why they view the here in the States, they're saying TikTok as a security concern, or working under the guise of it, is because they don't have access to the data, and from a perspective of cooperation with law enforcement. Informational inquiries made by law enforcement to Facebook, for example, are fulfilled a lot more than they are from TikTok. And because they aren't able to get that data and information, that's where the real problem lies. I don't know if that's the case, but honestly speaking, I knew in my heart of hearts that this supposed ban that the U.S. was facing wasn't going to go through, because somebody on that guy's campaign is definitely going to tell him, there are a ton of eligible voters that use that app, and if we take it away, they're not going to be happy with you. And
that's he is beholden to the voters now. But again, sorry, I'm sorry to be partisan. I'm sorry if there are any Trump voters listening. I can't imagine there's that many who listen to NetHeads. But if there are, I don't want to be more divisive. But I'm sorry, but it seems like if Trump wins another election, he has shown what he wants to do. I know I thought what he would want to do, I don't want to happen. And I think he might play ball at the moment to not disenfranchise young voters who use social media who might vote for him. But as soon as the election's over, if he wins, he's going to pull the trigger. Like, he hasn't been subtle about what he wants to do, really. Let's put it that way.
You know what? First of all, I appreciate you being sensitive to potential listeners about this. I think I've made my position very clear. However, the supposed beauty of my country is that everyone has the ability to have freedom of speech, which, let's be clear, doesn't mean you can say whatever you want, but it means you're supposed to be able to say it without fear of persecution by the government. That's what freedom of speech is. And I find my fellow countrymen so often conflating it with something else that isn't appropriate. But everyone is entitled to their political views and their opinion. I just get scared of the people where their political views are what define them. And I also get scared about the current state of things in this country, not specifically because of Donald Trump, but specifically because there are so many indicators that we are, a lot of people say that we're on the verge of falling into an autocracy, when realistically speaking, if you ask my opinion, that veil was lifted a while ago, considering you had somebody in charge of the U.S. Senate who was able to control what does and does not come to vote on the floor with such an iron grip that has occurred over the last, for example, 4 years. We've already been in that state. Like right now, honestly speaking, I fear for the American experiment of democracy at this point. I truly do, because for a long time, my fellow countrymen have always said that we don't need to be as concerned about this or that because there are checks and balances in place. But the current administration has basically thumbed itself at the norms, if you will, and those checks and balances haven't really been in place. They haven't been enforced. And because of that, I'm not saying one man can bring it down, but we are very clearly at a precipice where there is so much volatility and so little compromise that I don't know what even the next 4 years may hold. And that is a scary prospect.
There's a couple of things to that. One is, there were so many implicit rules that no one bothered to write the law in explicitly, because everyone just knew you, for instance, when you became president, you put your finances into a double-blind trust. There didn't have to be a law because everyone just did it. Everyone knew there would be such an uproar if you didn't. He didn't, and he got away with it.
Mm-hmm.
You have the other side of it, whereby, there are laws which are checks and balances, but it actually takes, if the party who is in power has such a majority as the Republicans do, they have to agree that they are going to put the rule of law over their party. And no matter what you say, even if you're in favor of the Republicans, you can't say that they've done that. Watergate only happens because their party is willing to put Nixon to account. We've seen with Trump, the Republicans aren't willing to do that with Trump. So those checks and balances count for naught. If you've got the person who decides whether or not something gets pardoned or something gets overturned, someone's got the power to pardon the people who will go to jail if they go with them, the people who went with Trump on many things and they end up going to jail. If he can pardon them with just a brush of a pen, what does it matter? It doesn't matter if they're sent to jail. He'll just pardon them straight away. You play ball, I'll pardon you. Mm-hmm. Nothing matters.
Well, realistically speaking, wow, this got really heady, especially considering we had such a more mentally helpful segment in your stream right before us. I almost wanted to say, no, please let them keep talking. Let's cut me short because I'm getting something from this. I'm feeling better. And now, we've just come in like a big concrete block and slammed that positive feeling down. But I'm always open to good discussion. And realistically speaking, first of all, it's nice to hear somebody's perspective that isn't in this country. But the other side too is that realistically, I don't fault Republicans. I don't fault Democrats. I don't hold any person to any particular definition just because of their political affiliation. But from a perspective of just the concept of American democracy, if the next election cycle, first of all, hopefully, if it occurs without interference, which, at this point, with what feels like very little differences between the current administration and other autocracies that are in place, where there is the veil of democracy, but not truly. It's still controlled by one person or one party. The only way that this will balance back out is it's going to take two things. One, the election has to massively sway in one direction, to use the term, to provide a referendum on everyone. But the other thing, too, that needs to happen is this political polarization has to be depolarized, because the thing that people have to remember is, even though the Republicans in your district, or even the Democrats or some swing voters or whoever voted you into office, you still represent everyone in your area that voted for you. So if the state of California voted me as its senator, I'm here to represent the blue, the red, the purple, and the white, and the anything, whatever, or the green, any particular political affiliation. I'm still their representative, regardless of my political affiliation. That doesn't happen right now. And the other thing that needs to be put into place, I think, are certain law changes, because we can't have a system where you have one person that's in charge of a political party and the majority, and locks things down in a way that have been locked down. I mean, the Democratic controlled Congress has passed, I think, over 200 laws that they've sent to the Senate for voting, and they haven't come to the floor for a vote. And that right there means that the Senate is essentially turning its back on the quote-unquote will of the voting people. And it also, once again, shows there's no compromise. There is no coming across the aisle and attempting to actually and effectively negotiate terms for either side so that you can have a compromise. And it's a sad state of affairs. I honestly don't know if we're going to come back from this. I really don't. I don't know if we can go back to how things were, because this polarization is something that has increased since the 50s and beyond. And I can only think what you guys must think of us. I mean, it was probably one thing when you heard, oh, Trump got elected, and then everything that's happened along the way. I don't know. I'm disillusioned. Let's just leave it at that. Let me ask you a different question. Let's totally change lanes here. Because let's go back to that Google News thing that I pointed out, especially since we've only got 20 minutes left. I'm noticing certain trends, and it could be because I clicked one story and now it's feeding me more, but are you starting to see Doctor Who speculation and news creeping in more of the news cycles in your area? Because at least in my news feed, I am. It seems like every other day there's something that's talking about what is going to be Series 13's storyline, who is going to stay, what are the ramifications. They're still bringing up articles about the ramifications of the timeless children or the timeless child or whatever it was in relation to who can. And so are you seeing news stories, or is this just the algorithm messing with me?
I have not been. I mean, I think there is a part, though, whereby I get so much of it on my Facebook feed because obviously I did over 300 episodes of a Doctor Who podcast. So you tend to get a lot of people writing and publishing articles and all sorts. And honestly, I love Doctor Who so much, I don't want to read any more about it. I just got sick and tired of either the proselytizing for Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall, beyond probably the evidence of how good it is right now, for me, and also the opposite of people saying it's like Doctor Who is dead. nothing annoys me more than articles saying Doctor Who is dead. It's like R.I.P. Doctor Who. It's like it's still being made. It's not dead. Like it's just not what you like in it right now. And it's not necessarily at the moment what I've really loved about Doctor Who. It has been exemplified by the last series. I did not like the Timeless Child thing, but that's fine. Like I cannot like it, and I can know next series. I'm kind of intrigued by the fact that I know this isn't a question you asked, but yeah, I'm kind of intrigued by the fact that Graham and Ryan are leaving, and my biggest beef about Jodie Whittaker's time as the Doctor is that I think we're suffering from the fact that it's still a male showrunner. I think he is still giving the best lines sometimes to Graham, and Graham, as the physically oldest character, is getting the wise sage words, which should go to the Doctor, who is infinitely older. Like she's the Doctor. The Doctor is always the wise one in the room, even when they're not being. They still are somewhat like sometimes they're doing a bit of a Columbo. They may be acting like a fool, but they're really intelligent underneath it. And I'm actually really just looking forward to a female Time Lord, a female companion. Let's see what she can do when she is actually hopefully written to better. Again, I think a female showrunner is really what's needed to write a really good female Doctor at this stage. But anyway, yeah, that's not what you asked, but that's kind of my thing on that. But well, I guess we kind of avoid articles because I feel like it's not about what's actually happening to Doctor Who. It's about what someone's trying to sell me about what they think about Doctor Who.
Which is exactly what's popping up in my newsfeed. But I thought maybe there might be a chance that at least it may be coming topical since we are at least creeping towards the holiday season and we're supposed to see the Dalek-themed holiday episode. But it's funny you mentioned that about the writing because one of the things that I looked back at after rewatching the last series as well and the one before it is that although excellently acted by Whittaker in the role, for some reason there is something in the character, and it may be kind of what you bring up, where I haven't been given that thing that helps me connect with the Doctor. It was a big thing that I had a problem with, I think, in Capaldi's early days, which is something that really easily got transformed, I think, about midway through his run. He lost the gruffness, and there was more humanity that was brought to this non-human. And I was able to connect with him more. And I don't feel like we've been given the opportunity to see inside of Whittaker's Doctor in that way. There haven't been those moments that really help connect us. I mean, clearly she's clever. Clearly there's a lot going on, but I haven't been able to have those moments to connect with her Doctor, if you will. Granted, I've got her sonic screwdriver on the wall behind me, so that is a connection, but it's not a good enough one. That's just merchandise. But I think I would like to see also what the new series is going to be without having such a top-heavy cast as well, and that might help because when you've got that many people, if you're going to try and be fair to the actors and keep them engaged, you've also got to kind of sprinkle the work around, if you will. So I'm hopeful for the new series, but man, boy, do I really miss some of those Tennant and Smith moments where you can tell the Doctor is kind of figured out what's going on and he's going through his journey to let whoever is behind this have an opportunity to redeem themselves before he'll bring down his version of Hellfire, for sure.
I fear at the moment it's almost like someone's writing Doctor Who based on being told about Doctor Who episodes. So I feel like Chris Chibnall, he hasn't developed his own. I'm not feeling a sense of his overall style for what it is. All I keep on thinking is parallels to other things that have already happened. So Gallifrey got destroyed before and then was brought back, so he's re-destroyed it. We had this wonderful thing of the War Doctor. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. It was such a revelation, something so unique. Then they did it again by having the Timeless Child storyline and having the Jo Martin Doctor, the fugitive Doctor, I believe she's being known as now. It's all stuff just I've seen before. I'm not getting anything new, nothing exciting.
I don't mean to completely go full nerd on this, but like the moment they made the Timeless Child reveal, I'm like, okay, somebody's really trying to make a name for themselves now. But the other thing that I instantly thought is, okay, so then if the Joe doctor is the doctor before the doctor we've ever known, why on earth is the TARDIS a police call box?
Yep.
That is like the one biggest plot hole that just goes to show that like somebody really wasn't paying attention to the past when they were considering the future.
And I think they'll probably try and retcon it somewhere where that kind of makes sense, and it'll be very lame. But I mean, there's also, it's like another one of these moments which feel like it's an impression of something in the past. They've used the idea of the Doctor being the sum of their memories and that being so powerful. That's been a thing which has been explored before. In the Timeless Child episodes, the Doctor uses her mind to break the Matrix because all the power of her memories and everything. Now, Matrix is the repository for all of the every Gallifreyan's mind, including the Doctor's, including memories the Doctor doesn't have. So even just at the level of the Doctor, let alone all those other Time Lords, it has more information on the Doctor than the Doctor has at this stage. So why does she break it with her memories? Her memories are less than what's there. It makes no sense. It's just a pastiche of a moment we've seen before where, no, you're more than some of your memories. And it's like we're going to have this aha moment. But if you think about it for a second, nothing makes sense about it.
Yeah, unfortunately. We also just alienated like probably 90% of the listeners because we went full hardcore nerd. But, you know, it's like I don't think we ever had that kind of summation conversation other than a Facebook chat. And honestly speaking, that's one of the things that I kind of look forward to always during a new Doctor Who season was then appearing on Gallifrey Stands, because I knew I would have that one dedicated period where I could hardcore geek out talking about the show, you know? Because that's what we get
a couple of years when I've forgotten how much it taxes me to do on these Squeefests.
and you always bring me in near the end too. You always bring me near in like some of the harsher hours. So I'm like always like
I need you people from overseas. I need the Americans and the Australians and the people in different time zones, because like no English people are up. So I need I've actually this time there's a fantastic comedian from Mumbai who's coming on, Anavad Pal. He's on my time 8 o'clock in the morning, because just 7 o'clock I think it is, because I just know that no English people are up then. So I have to get people when I can get them.
I just love that I start bringing up socio-political commentary at 5 a.m. your time. That was a rough call for me. What was I thinking, man? What was I thinking? Hey, are you a gamer at all?
I'm no, not really at all. No, I've gamed in a very long time.
Yeah, you're kind of probably in the same boat as me though, because apparently the entire gaming world was rocked hardcore because of the announce and the pre-order situation of the PS5, because it came in two versions, right? There's basically one with a disk drive and another without, and $100 price point difference in that. So one is all online and downloads for your media, and a really attractive price point. And this is the first time the PS line, PlayStation line has been updated, I think since 2013. But that was great because it came in to a point where people, for some reason, are just willing to say, yeah, $4.99 for a gaming console, I'm down. But also, apparently, their pre-order situation was just an absolute nightmare, and I was hoping to get your perspective on it. But sounds like you're just like me, where I'm basically going to the generation behind me, saying, okay, do I really need a PS5? Which I know I don't, because last year for Christmas I got a PS4. And the Spider-Man video game as a gift. Literally, I played Marvel's Spider-Man from beginning to end, and the PS4 has just been disconnected since. Haven't even hooked it back up yet.
There is something I can weigh in on this, because it's something interesting, and I think it is something generational. And I think we may be the last people to sort of give up on this, or certainly our generation, is the idea of having physical memory. More and more stuff's going to online, and you just get stuff in the cloud. And always my thought is, the Surface will go for the Surface Pro, for instance. It mostly relies on cloud storage and stuff like that. But what happens if you're out of signal? You don't have your files. You don't have your laptop effectively for that period. And that's always my thought. Like, until they get it so there's universal Wi-Fi everywhere, so there's no dull spots, I don't want a laptop which is only useful while I can get a signal. And that's how I feel about these games. Is I still want physical memory.
I'm with you. And I also equate it to my entertainment. I am very big on movies and watching TV, and so much has moved to streaming. I still, even though it's a double-edged sword, I still will tend to buy physical media and make sure that I get a digital code with it that I can redeem, so that way I can have the convenience of streaming it. But I want the physical media in the event that I'm doing something else, like a road trip with the kids, so you can have something playing, or just, hey, the internet is slow, but I know this Blu-ray or this HD disc is going to play no matter what. But even that comes with a double-edged sword, because like so much has gone streaming, and I ended up replicating so much of my memory, or as I said, my library, or as I've said, I've collected so many digital codes with my media that all of it is streaming anyway. I literally was faced with the decision of, what do I do with all these damn things now? What's the most efficient way to store them? Because right now I've literally got 2 huge boxes of Blu-rays in the garage, and it's like, what do you do with them? It's frustrating. It's so frustrating, but there's no way to win in this exchange.
Yami has just put in the chat, and this is an interesting point, that LPs recently actually outsold CDs recently. And it is this weird kind of thing of physical media come back around, it becomes retro.
But you see, LPs, vinyl, if you will, for me, this is super exciting, because as an audiophile, because look, if you ever talk to me about Avengers Endgame, at some point I'm always going to bring up, so now I'm saving everyone else talking to me about this movie. One of the things I appreciated the most, that I picked up on even in the movie theater, was at the point where, spoilers, Tony Stark grabs the gauntlet, right? And then there's that moment where his glove is basically stealing the gems from the glove that Thanos has on, from that gauntlet. If you listen, you can hear gears and clicks and turning, because you know that physical, well, you don't know it that the first time you see it, but that physical transfer is happening, because some sound engineer knew, we need to put something in here to indicate that this transfer is happening. But for me also, I was just super excited, because it was a detail that some audio artists knew had to be in there, and it further expanded the experience for me. A few years ago, they were able to demonstrate, using high fidelity recordings, the difference in music from LPs versus CDs, and especially MP3s. With the massive adoption of MP3s in the industry, we lost so much sound quality. There are sound details, for example, in Stairway to Heaven. If you play an original LP up against the MP3, you will hear details and resonance in the guitars that you do not hear today in digital media. And so I'm super excited for LPs to be coming back, because it means people are hearing things as the artists originally recorded and intended. And it just provides so much more detail and so much beauty. And it's just one of those things where I really hope it continues. And I hope it leads to a greater revolution in the world of music and in compression and decompression, so we come up with better ways to better capture and maintain the artistry that was made.
And I think there's a thing there about like competition breeds better. Like, so where streaming just became the de facto, like it was MP3s and then it was streaming. Like that's become the de facto form of enjoying your music. Like you get Spotify or one of the other services, that's how you do it. And when they don't have any competition from anything, they've got no interest in making a better listening experience, because they know their convenience will outstrip anything else. If LPs start selling better and there's an alternative, they then have got a reason to make that experience better, to make the depth of sound better. And I don't think we're at the stage where LPs is enough of a threat where they're going to bother themselves. So we need to shows something that we demand that we won't just put up with streaming. And I'm bad for it myself. Like, streaming is so convenient. I end up doing that, and I guess I need to be part of the solution more than the problem, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it's true, and I wish I was too. But the geek in me absolutely loves that I can talk to a little device in my house and I can instantly be listening to whatever I want. Or I can say something as nerdy as computer, office lights red, and then this happens. I love that. And I decide it's wrong and I go computer, office lights blue, whammo. I'm in the future. Well, if you don't have it key in on the word Alexa, it's a little more sketchy, but now I look like I'm burning in hellfire, which, hey, welcome to California and the US as well, because that's the theme of everything. Anyway, we are really coming up on time. I just have to say, sir, I always enjoy our conversations. I hope and pray that we can have more of them, and that we have more of them in a positive light in the future, with probably not as heavy of topics as we did this one. And I salute your efforts every year for trying to make the world better through the medium that we both love. So thank you for all of that.
Thank you so much.
Computer, office lights blue.
These things don't happen with people like you, without people like you joining me, and without people like you giving me someone to talk to, giving me these interesting shows to play off. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of NetHeads, so thank you for having me on multiple times now. It's a pleasure. And
thank you for having me on. And hey, everybody, when it gets to be too much, just remember, take a deep breath. And if the sun is shining, go outside and just for a couple minutes, look up, close your eyes, smile at the sun, and just try and think a happy thought, because that's all we can really do when it all comes down to it.
And turn to the ones you love around you. That's something which doesn't go in and out of fashion. It's harder for that to go wrong than global things.
Which is very true, which is why the moment we wrap up here, I am going to be shutting all of this down, inflating an air mattress in my family room, and camp with my 6-year-old daughter, who is so excited to be able to have a sleepover with dad. So, and mind you, we all live in the same house and I am still married. So, technically it's not a sleepover, but it's her definition and she's excited. So that's all it takes. Right?
Well, yes,
all right. Well, until next time, folks, this has been another edition of NetHeads. My name is Will.
My name's been Doctor Squee.
And until next time, well, one of us anyway, will be back soon.
This is NetHeads with Will Wilkins and Trent Hunsaker.
Well, not.
Signing off. I know, right? But stop being a little Nancy and deal with it. NetHeads. We'll be back soon.
Goodbye.
This has been a production of Smodco Internet Radio. Sir, only at smodcast.com.